All right, good afternoon, guys. Hope you guys are doing well. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar. We were obviously hoping that we could do this in person, but making the best of what we can here. We're excited to have Danielle Learned and Alice Heath from Horizon Investments join us today for this webinar on empowering the female investor. A couple of housekeeping things. If you guys have questions along the way, that's great. We're using the chat tool there because you all will be muted during this. So use the chat tool there. The questions will come into us and we'll get them answered as we go. We're very fortunate at Lerner Financial to have a partnership with Horizon Investments. And we've developed this over the last number of years. And Horizon does a couple of things for us, a lot of things for us. But a couple of the biggest things are they help us manage our Ferris retirement accounts. So your retirement accounts that we have the ability to manage, Horizon is our primary investor for those. And then we also have what's called a consulting relationship with Horizon Investments and well. And we partner on a number of different things, but they sit on our investment committee. And it's really just developed into a great relationship. We go back and forth on strategies. One of the big things being that we're very goals-based in regard to our planning and our strategies, and that's something that we share with Horizon. And so we feel like that helps our clients achieve their biggest financial goals throughout their lives, not just in retirement. So we're very proud of and appreciative of the partnership we have with Horizon. So today, again, I have Danielle and Alice. Danielle is the Director of Client Operations. She's our primary contact in our consulting relationship with Horizon. And she supports advisors like us here at Lerner Financial with a number of different things, but education, growth, development, client relations, a lot of things like that. Danielle's been in the business since 2011, previous to Horizon, with as an assistant vice president with LPL Financial Group. And she also holds her Series 6, 7, 63, and 65 licenses through FINRA. So we're appreciative to have Danielle on with us. And then Alice Heath is responsible for managing the internal sales desk at Horizon. And her responsibilities include training, coaching, motivating, and managing the sales team at Horizon. And then in turn, they give us the information that we need to help you guys as our clients. She also provides support for the managing directors and regional directors of sales and developing new business leads along with their existing relationships. Prior to Horizon, Alice got her master's degree from Chemie Business School in Limerick, Ireland. So that's extremely interesting and pretty awesome experience. And that is in financial services with a concentration on behavioral finance, which is obviously extremely important in our business. And she has a degree in finance and international business from the University of Alabama. So again, we are very appreciative at Lerner Financial to have the partnership with Horizon. We appreciate Danielle and Alice joining us today, and we hope that you guys get a lot out of this. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Alice to get things started.
Hey guys, just thank you so much for joining. We really appreciate the opportunity to work with you guys, and I get to kind of do this women's presentation. Here's just a very quick agenda. I'm going to talk about why gender matters, having kind of that background in behavioral finance. I will get into some of the behavioral aspects of gender, and then Danielle will take over characteristics of female investors, and then give you some tips on how to select and working with a financial advisor. And then we'll, of course, open it up to Q&As. If you have questions throughout the presentation, go ahead and put them in that chat box, and we'll see them. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay. So if you can see the screen, which I hope that you can, illusionary effects can cause our minds to play tricks on us. For example, the passage on the left. Go ahead and try to read it, and I'll read it for you. It doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be in the right place. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. We are constantly trying to take mental shortcuts. Also, the image on the right, where these lines look very crooked, but the horizontal lines are completely, perfectly parallel. Again, this is just an illusion that our minds are creating for us, giving the different background. And this is because we often try to make sense of all the chaos around us and try to put it into order. Our brains are hardwired to seek out patterns and to go off of past experiences. But without this process, we would not be able to function. Now, next slide. Similar to visual illusions, our decision-making process is also subject to illusions, or what we'll call cognitive biases, especially when it comes to making a decision that's risk-induced, like a financial decision. When we get very fearful or very excited, our prefrontal cortex, which is the logical thinking part of our brain, it actually shuts down completely, and emotions take over. And emotions are part of what makes us human. Some of our greatest accomplishments have come from emotional decisions. Like when I graduated college feeling free as a bird, I thought it'd be a great idea to buy a one-way ticket to Europe. And I didn't come back for 3.5 years. Completely irrational. You should have seen my mother's face. But it ended up being one of the best decisions that I've ever made. But emotions can get very tricky when it comes to investing. And that's why we shouldn't always go with that gut instinct when making financial decisions. Now, lucky for us, there has been a lot of research done in this behavioral finance world. And by understanding how we react to risk and how we process information, we can actually start to modify our behaviors so that we can make more rational decisions with our finances that ultimately will lead to better outcomes. So not only are men and women both subject to these cognitive kind of primal instinct biases, but a number of recent studies have actually proven that gender also has a very substantial influence on our cognitive functions. We make decisions very differently, men and women. We process information different. We think about emotion different, perception, which all leads to we solve problems very differently, and we make decisions differently as well. Typically, there are 4 main areas of the brain that we are different in, that scientists talk about, 4 to 5. The first is how we process information. So basically, if you think about a brain, it's filled with either gray matter or it's filled with white matter. Gray matter is what males have 7 times more of, and gray matter are very localized and specialized sections of the brain. So think about a male's brain having a lot of tiny little boxes that store very specific information in there. When they're asked to do something or think about something or are trying to process information to make a decision, they will identify that specific box, they will open it up, get out just the information that they need, and close that box without touching any of the other boxes. This can create a tunnel-like vision mindset. And so when someone that has more gray matter, typically men, when they are doing a task or a game or an activity, they may become less sensitive to the people and things around them in order to get that specific task done. Women, on the other hand, we have 10 times more of this white matter. You can think about this white matter as being a big networking grid or a ball of yarn, whatever you want to think about, and it connects all of these gray boxes to other processing centers around our brain. This is why women tend to move from task to task a lot more quicker. We think about a lot of things at once. We're constantly trying to connect the dots when we're processing information. It also makes us really good multitaskers. I'll give you one example. I'm from southern Louisiana. We get a ton of hurricanes. I remember one afternoon my mom called up my dad and said, hey, hurricane's coming, go and get the valuables. So in her mind, she's thinking all of these different valuables, but for him, he hears the word valuable, opens up that one little box that has his golf clubs in them. He goes, gets his golf clubs, and takes that down to the basement. That was his, well, I got the valuables, but he didn't think of anything else. Not his fault. His brain's just not set up that way. Next is chemistry. So we all process the same neurochemicals, just to different degrees. The two that I'll just touch on, females, we process way more of this relationship bonding chemical, oxytocin, or the love chemical, as they call it. This is responsible for, or plays a big role in our emotions, in our social settings, things like that. This is why we seek that sort of relationship a lot more. We are a lot more patient. I want to get to know and understand something. As opposed to men, they create more testosterone. We all know this. Testosterone, though, can lead, this is pretty much why they aren't able to sit still for as long as we are. They get impatient a little bit more frequently or more often, and they tend to be a little bit more impulsive or physical. And so really the taking from this chemistry is that we process different neurochemicals in our brain, really when it comes to stress, so how our bodies respond and react and what we need to handle stress. From a structural component, this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Women, we tend to have a bigger hippocampus, which is basically our memory center. Not only do we have a bigger memory center, but we have more connections that lead from different processing centers of our brain to this memory center. So typically we intake or we absorb more emotive information than males do. So not only do men have a smaller memory center, they have far less connections from their memory center to other centers of their brain. Additionally, hemispheric, our brains develop differently. Typically, females develop with verbal centers on both our right and left side of our brains, whereas men typically only develop a verbal center on their left side of the brain. And I'm only laughing because it makes total sense. Whenever females try to describe our feelings or try to use our words to describe a situation or our wants or needs, we typically use more words. And I can only think back to the last time I was having a serious conversation with a guy friend, and I wanted to get his opinions, how he felt about something, and he said, ditto. And I was a little bit upset at first, and then I realized they only have one verbal center, and it's not connected to much. But women, like just understanding that we like to talk about these things. It's not that men don't, it's just that we process more, again, of that relationship bonding. We have more verbal centers that are connected back to memory. And so typically, we like to talk about these things and are more open to do it. So if you are meeting with a financial advisor with your spouse, or if you're having a conversation with a male financial advisor, as you do here, maybe bring up that you want to talk about these things. They might not know too. Blood flow and brain activity, we can kind of lump these in together. Typically, women have way more natural blood flow and blood activity, and brain activity going on at any given moment. Again, it's because of this white matter that we have 10 times more of. The takeaway here is, we like to think about things, a lot of things at once. We like to go back and revisit things, take our time processing them, which is generally why it takes us a little bit longer to make decisions. So why does this really matter? why does this behavioral information, like how can it be beneficial? So we know that we're multitaskers. We like to think about a lot of things. We are more tuned into our feelings, our emotions, kind of the values that feel good. That's important because this plays a really big role in why women don't see money as just the bottom line. We see it as a lot of different things. Long-term goals. We tend to think about the future more, probably because, again, we're thinking about multiple things at once, trying to connect the dots. So we think about the future more. We plan a little bit more. We plan longer. I think one of the reasons why most of our goals are more longer term is because it takes us longer to make a decision. It's only natural that if it takes you longer to make a decision, you're going to have longer term goals. Now, I will say this can be a little bit of a hindrance to us, especially when making financial goals. It is so important to have short-term goals as well, to act as milestones and keep us motivated and keep us on track so we can learn something from our male partners there. Secondly, women, we generally, again, don't associate money as just the bottom line. We associate with a lot of non-monetary goals, such as a sense of security or independence or quality of life for either ourselves or, more importantly, our family and our loved ones. We love to learn in a group setting. We don't really have that alpha male, I want to be number one mentality. We like to empower one another. We like to have good friends and good people around us. And we love our personal networks. COVID's been really tough. We all need haircuts. I need a haircut. My hairdresser is not open, but who am I going to ask whenever I want advice for that hairdresser, or if I need to go to a doctor? It's not going to be Google. It's not going to be Yelp. I'm going to ask my closely trusted friends, my family, my colleagues. Women are typically more risk-averse and skeptical. We like to do our research, but we like to get our research from very trusted sources. We love our personal networking, and that's all driving towards, because what we really want to find is a trusted relationship. We have more of that oxytocin, right? We desire that type of relationship feeling. And so very different typically in how men see money as just means to an end, the bottom line. We want something a lot more because we're thinking about a lot more than just money. So female investors, which we all are, there's a lot of misconceptions. A lot of the time we hear that being a woman puts you at a disadvantage for investment success, or that we just lack confidence. That's why we don't invest more, and that we all kind of fit into some weird female box, which, again, is just not true. We don't lack confidence, and actually 60% of female investors say that it's not that they lack confidence, it's that they lack the knowledge that they are seeking to make better decisions, which leads us to the reality is, typically, women are underserved in financial services. Media makes it seem that the man of the household controls the finances, which is not true. And we absolutely should not be bucketed into a one-size-fits-all. Females go through very fundamentally different life stages than males. One thing that is not on here is, hello, I'm pregnant. About 80% of females end up having children. But there are multiple stages in life caused by events that we will go through. Single, divorced, remarried. Maybe you've become the caregiver of your parents. That can put a lot of financial stress on someone, especially since the females typically are the caregiver, or widowed. 77% of widows are females. And so as you navigate through life's beautiful yet twisted financial journey, you may be in one of these stages or many of these stages multiple times or more than one at any given time. Why does this matter? We control the cash. At the end of the day, we will be in control of our household money. We have a lot of influence, not only on financial decisions, but on decisions for our family. And as I mentioned, we are constantly in transition. Our goals and needs always evolving, always changing. It's really important just to acknowledge that. It's okay, it's normal, but having a very trusted financial advisor will help you navigate your path.
Sounds good. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Nick, and thank you to all of you on the phone. We're extremely grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation, especially as women in this industry. I think the more that we can continue to create networks and empower each other to have these conversations, it really bodes well for the next generation that follows us. Alice talked to you all a little bit about kind of the science and the chemistry that really drives our different unique preferences when it comes to financial decision making. But these gender differences are extremely important when it comes to money, but also when it comes to our personal relationships and the networks that we build. As we become more empowered and kind of seek more financial knowledge and control in the decision-making process, as Alice mentioned, we see money way more than the bottom line. And we at Horizon recognize that not all women and not all people should be bucketed into one group in terms of how they're serviced, both from a financial services standpoint, but also from a relationship standpoint. And we really strive to represent the unique journey that women go on through their life cycle. As Alice mentioned, you may start as a solo kind of adult, and coming out of college, you may buy a ticket to Europe for 3 years and not come back. And then you may meet someone and get married, and maybe you have a child, and then maybe, unfortunately, you part ways and remarry again, and then ultimately are taking care of your parents. Those are very complex changes in both your personal life, but also in your financial kind of well-being, and there's a lot of different decisions that you're forced to make, and it's really important that you find people around you that you can trust to be a sounding board and help you navigate through those decisions. As Alice mentioned, there are chemical differences why we look at our financial picture very differently than our male counterparts. We do care about performance, and we want the products that we use to do well and give us a high return on those investments. But we see it more as a means to finance the specific goals and objectives that are really important to us and to our families and to those we care about. We tend to think about things more as like, how can we benefit those around us and also still do well? And it's really important that we try to meet both those short and long-term goals, because we see them as commitments that we've made not only to ourselves, but again, kind of the people that are around us. So we tend to make more values-based decisions. Again, we are not solely focused on the bottom line. And I do think some of the common misconceptions about women are actually some of our most powerful attributes. We're risk aware, but we also take longer time to make decisions, but for the right reasons. We want to fully contemplate all of the risks that are on the table and understand how that impacts us both today and in the future. As Alice mentioned, all of us are in desperate need of haircuts, probably nail appointments, eyebrow waxes, you name it. I know that when I first moved to Charlotte from Connecticut, I didn't walk into a hairdresser or a nail salon without asking several of my peers, who do you trust, who would you use? It's the same when you get work done on your home. You're looking for someone who's reliable, for someone who's credible, and someone that you feel like you can trust. And all of these things, again, make our money-related decisions and personal relationship decisions inherently different than men. As Alice mentioned, we control the cash, right? So as of this year, that's $22 trillion that women have the predominant financial influence over. We're also making more than half of the investment and spending decisions in the household. So if you think about it, the person in the household that's likely going to Target, Costco, Amazon, and making those kind of consumer discretionary spending purchases are typically the women. And at Horizon, a core part of our value proposition and our mission is to help our clients meet their most important financial goals and objectives throughout their life. And we understand that people, especially women, face some very specific challenges along that journey. As I talked about, early adulthood, transitioning to parenting, caregiving, retirement, spousal caregiving. All of these different things necessitate a need for someone who truly understands that complexity and how to help you navigate both those short and long-term challenges. As Alice mentioned, I think it's a great benefit for women that we think about things in the long term, but there are short and medium intermediate term goals that are really important, whether that is when do I open a 529 plan for my child's savings? How much should I be contributing to that? You know, as children get closer to driving age, should I be putting money aside to pay for a car? How am I going to handle the increase in car insurance? You know, there's all these different decisions that we are forced to contemplate that I don't think our male counterparts really are forced to navigate in terms of the complexity that we deal with. As Alice mentioned, some of the very specific gender differences lead our priorities in vastly different directions than our male counterparts. And we talked about some of the common misconceptions and things that are perceived as a hindrance of being a woman, but I do think there are parts of those that are really an asset that we should take advantage of. And the first of those is longevity. There is absolute science behind the fact that women live longer than men. I think Alice and I were talking yesterday, and it's about 80 to 82% of people over the age of 100 are male. And we're consistently living longer. The science is continuing to evolve, and that creates a really complex problem for us as women. That could be an additional 10, 15, 20 years that we now have to solve for. How do we make sure we have enough money to live those extra years? And in addition to that, the cost of living at that age becomes increasingly more expensive when you factor in inflation and things like long-term care. Everybody's financial situation is very different at that point in time. And leading up to that, we also take on a lot of additional responsibilities and caregiving roles, as we've mentioned, whether that's taking care of a spouse or a partner, taking care of aging parents, potentially a special needs child, right? There are a lot of other factors that go into a woman's financial journey and how she defines financial security. Another really unique factor is that men will make sacrifices for their family, and this is not to discount them and say that they don't do so, but they don't typically have the same financial consequences or workforce interruptions as it does for us women. There are some statistics out there that say upon retirement, you know, a woman may have earned a cumulative $1 million less than a man who stayed fully immersed in the workforce for their entire life. Women typically have about an 8-year age gap if they are stepping away to help parent a child at home. They may also, again, step away in their 40s and 50s as, again, they have aging parents that they need to care for. And we typically retire earlier. So if you think about kind of the volatility or all the different changes that happen for us throughout our lifetime, it's really important that we have, you know, friends and resources around us to educate us on how to be prepared for those decisions and how to come out on the other side, you know, financially well. I know Alice talked a little bit about kind of some of the emotive reasons around why we make decisions differently, but those are super valuable as a woman. It means that we're more open and receptive to financial guidance. So I think what you'll find is men typically, again, if you're thinking about the little boxes in the brain that Alice talked about, they take out that very specific question or topic they have, and they get typically a very kind of narrow answer, and they close that box and they don't feel the need to open it again. You know, when we start to think about topics and questions, for example, like I mentioned, when do I open a 529 plan for my children for college? That all of a sudden nudges the box next to it to the right and nudges the box next to it to the left, and all of a sudden we've come up with this entire list of questions of, well, what if my child decides to move 6 states away from me and I don't get to see them as often? What if the out-of-state tuition is more expensive, right? So we constantly are evaluating a myriad of factors, and it can become overwhelming. However, we are infinitely more patient and can keep our focus to staying on track and navigating all of those different decisions. So what some people tend to stereotype women for actually become some of our greatest assets and make us really successful investors in the long term. And as we talked about, our motivations are just categorically different. We are driven more by values and things that we care about. We like to invest perhaps maybe in things that benefit the environment, or, you know, focus on companies that really are centered on doing good and have a good corporate structure and are giving back to their communities. When you take all of these different things that we talked about, the science behind it, the different motivations, how we make decisions, we live longer, we're more patient, right? This kind of abstract picture of what is a woman. When you compound that all together, it is even more important and critical that we identify what are the best resources to help us get information and how do we make these decisions in the right way. Because I think another feature of being a woman is we're constantly having like buyer's remorse or second guessing our decisions. So we need to feel empowered in the decisions that we're making and have a sounding board to be able to say, am I on the right path? Am I thinking about the right things? What else did I miss? And there's a lot of different questions that us as women investors may be asking. For example, if I'm getting married, do I keep my finances separate? Do we get a joint bank account? Do I keep some money in a credit card on the side? I might be filing for divorce. What are the financial moves that I should make, right? That is a really daunting task for a lot of people, and there's so many emotional decisions that are being made. If I'm planning to have a child, can I afford to be a stay-at-home mom? And if so, for how long? And what happens if I become a widow? Do I need long-term care? Again, when do I open the 529 plan? How much should I be submitting to my 401k or 403b? How much does the company match, and how does that work? Our financial independence and empowerment is at an all-time high, and I think as women investors, we are finally kind of breaking the taboo and talking about our finances and talking about money and taking the role in making those decisions. But there's still a lot of room for progress for us, and I think in order to kind of continue that upward trend, it's, again, as I mentioned, really important to find education and resources that really contemplate how different we are, both from a science and a behavioral standpoint. And you'll note that kind of the underpinning question on the slide that you see in front of you is, how do I find an advisor that I can trust? How do I find someone that understands all the boxes in my brain, understands all the reasons why I may ask the questions that I'm asking, and the thought process that I'm going through as I'm asking these questions, and can, again, really stand to empower me and help me make those financial decisions. And I think one of the things that Alice and I both can probably speak to is Horizon's been in the business of serving financial advisors for 20 plus years, and we've seen the full gamut, you know, good, bad, and ugly. And I think our partners at Lerner are fantastic examples of, you know, male financial advisors that truly understand the complexity of being a woman investor, and also the importance of making the financial conversation really centered around how can I meet my goals successfully and really do it in a meaningful way. So let's maybe discuss a little bit about how, you know, how do we select an advisor and who can help really kind of guide us through the complexity of that journey. As Alice mentioned earlier, women are typically underserved when it comes to financial services. I think the stat you gave, 60% feel kind of misunderstood. In addition, most of us walk away from an existing financial advisor from either our partner or our spouse when that person passes away. So that tells me that we need to be more involved in those relationships early on and make sure, again, there's this sense of credibility and trust and empowerment that is kind of a core underpinning of that relationship. As a woman, when we are building new relationships and finding new products and finding new services, like professional experience and expertise is paramount to us. We would never spend the money on a product or go get a new service without reading reviews, without looking at comparison reports, without asking our friends and our parents and other, you know, peers at work. When you want a job done right, you hire a professional to get the best results, and a financial advisor and financial planner to help you with your financial well-being is really no different. We really, as women, prefer to work with companies that come from high endorsement of people around us that we trust. And in talking to women investors, and Alice and I have been to a handful of conferences, and some of the things that you hear from end clients are really sad. We're like, I don't need my advisor to tell me how smart he is, or all of the, you know, awards that he's won, or, you know, all of the certifications he has. I just need him to give me confidence in my own abilities and how to make well-informed financial decisions. And I don't want to be embarrassed to ask him what, in my mind, may be a stupid question. So again, what I take away from those types of conversations is we want to be heard, right, Alice? We want to be empowered. Yep. Space time with a financial advisor or a person that is helping us on that journey allows us to build that trust and creates more open lines of communication. And it's really important to set clear expectations on the front end. If you are going to work with an advisor, what that relationship will be like. Find someone who will invest in educating you and answering the questions that you have, and that really you feel aligns personally with your value set and understands, the importance of helping you meet your financial goals and objectives. So you'll see kind of on this slide here, a lot of the terms that I mentioned are bolded, because I think having worked as an assistant to a group of financial advisors right out of college, I had not much to expect out of this industry. And those 4 people I worked with really shaped my view on financial services and how women fit in that picture as a whole. Every single one of them would do separate meetings specifically with them to just kind of educate them and answer any questions that they have. All of the women, after their spouses passed away, retained those advisors because they felt like they trusted that person immensely. And they also felt empowered to make financial decisions, and there was never a question of how that communication would go and what the expectations of that relationship were. As a funny anecdote, we did have an advisor who unfortunately was kind of the keeper of widows, but every year on Valentine's Day, he did send all of his widowed clients flowers and chocolates and would bring them together for a Valentine's Day dinner. So I think that's a really cool and unique way for a financial advisor to kind of make a connection with someone who, is kind of alone, and is a big change for them. What we'll send to everyone who's on the phone today is we wanted everyone to walk away with some very kind of tangible resources that they can use when maybe they're looking at selecting advisor or talking to their existing advisor. As I mentioned, Horizons worked with financial advisors directly for 20 years, and we know the value that they can bring to the table. But as women in the financial services industry, we know that it can be pretty daunting to find the right person to work with. This is kind of a one-page handout that we'll leave with you all and just kind of highlight some of the questions that we think are important to ask of a financial advisor. I think they're questions that we have asked the financial advisors we work with, both that we serve at Horizon, but in our personal lives. I think the underpinning point there is we spend a lot of time researching, interviewing, and soliciting feedback on all the other decisions we make. Why would we not take that same approach with a financial advisor that we work with? So again, here's just some of the questions that we think are really important is understand the types of clients that the advisor currently works with. Ask them, do you have clients like me? Do you have other clients that are dealing with a lot of the same problems? Ask them what they love about their job, and most importantly, how is that relationship going to work? Is it just with that one advisor, or is there a team of people you have access to, and make sure you meet those people? Understand the services that they offer, and if those solutions really align with your core value set. And then, I think it's always important, can those advisors help you invest in things you care about? So whether that's the environment or looking at companies that are maybe a little bit more socially responsible, focused on diversity. Again, there's a lot of different avenues and things that may be very important to you personally, that it's important that they understand. If you do have a current advisor, and many of you may already outside of the retirement plan at the university, is just like you continually evaluate relationships and services that you have outside of the financial services world, we encourage that you continue to evaluate your existing relationships to make sure they're meeting your expectations that you all set forth when you first started working together. I think in our minds, great advisors, Alice, the ones that we work with, are really great teachers. They teach us as a firm a lot about the industry, but they really focus on educating their clients to avoid some of those common behavioral mishaps that Alice mentioned earlier in the presentation. And they should continue to focus on that education and really making you feel empowered. And a great financial advisor should do more than just explain complicated terms to you and really focus on additional services. So I mentioned a lot of things that you may have heard in conversations with friends or other financial advisors. Long-term care is a big one, right? When is the right time for me to think about long-term care insurance? Because as you get older, it gets more expensive. When do I start the 529 plan and college savings programs for my children? I need help managing a budget and understanding my cash flow on a monthly basis. There's a lot of different pieces that go into your financial wellness, and your current or future advisor should be able to help you navigate all of that. So again, this will be a leave behind for everyone, but just a couple of questions to help you evaluate that relationship on an ongoing basis. Are you happy with the communication? Do they take time to explain the decisions we're making? And most importantly, again, remember we're hardwired as females to think about our long-term goals. Am I still on track, and is my portfolio and all of the other products that we're using enhancing my ability to meet that goal? I think the one thing that we really want everyone to walk away with is, as a woman, our financial independence and empowerment, as I mentioned, is at an absolute tipping point. It's really important that we continue to take active roles in our education, which is why you're all here today and why Alice and I were jumping at the opportunity to be able to talk to you all. Don't be afraid to ask questions, whether it's to Nick and his team, whether it's to folks around you. Education really builds confidence, and I think especially as women in financial services, Alice and I could probably tell you, it's really easy to not want to raise your hand and ask a question in a room full of people who already understand what they're talking about. But the more you ask, the more you know. We talked about some of the things that unfortunately stereotype women into being poor investors. Turn those into assets, right? Understand the impact of longevity. We will live longer. That is an asset for us. That gives us more time to invest. That gives us more time to incorporate different investment products. That gives us more time to accumulate and save assets. So start your retirement plans early. Take advantage of company matching. Explore those college savings programs if you have children. And again, ask about long-term care policies to make sure that if something unfortunate were to happen and unexpected, you've got the right kind of protection in place to do so. Be a financial role model. I think this is extremely important, especially as the next generation of women come up, being more involved in roles that they weren't previously and historically involved in. So be a role model, mentor those around you. I think especially at the university, there's probably tremendous opportunity to do that. And I would encourage you all to break the taboo around money talk. I think money in general is a really sensitive subject and sometimes gets lumped into politics, religion, and some of those truly taboo conversations. But I think the more that you encourage conversation with your friends and your family and other professionals, the more everyone will benefit from that education. And they may have done something that is something that you were looking for and can introduce you to a resource that can do that. Plan early and plan often. So again, longevity, right? We are living longer. We have more complexity in our lives. So the earlier that you can start to really be mindful of budgeting and your cash flow and putting aside the appropriate dollars and investing to maximize your opportunity to retire the way that you really envision, and do so with a financial advisor that is really a partner that understands your unique goals and objectives and can help you evaluate that plan and determine, am I on track or am I off track? And most importantly, I think the parting thing, Alice, and I would leave you with is, invest like a woman and be proud of it, right? There is so much science and behavioral aspects to the way that we invest that are truly powerful. There's a financial advisor that we work with, Alice, I'm not sure, is she based on the West Coast, I think?
Yeah, she's based in the West Coast, and her entire book of business is focused around females. That is her, and she's thriving. But it's all based on females, and she's out West Coast.
Yeah, so, and the reason we bring her up is I want you all to leave with this notion of you are enough, you have enough, and you will thrive. And it's just important to find folks like the team over at Learner and us here at Horizon that allow you to do that and continue to feel empowered to have those conversations. We really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all today, and I know we were supposed to do this in person, so hopefully we will be able to travel soon and do that. But Nick, we will turn it back to you.
Yeah, thank you guys. That was awesome. A ton of great information. What Danielle and Alice talked about is 100% right on. I try not to be offended by science, I guess. But
okay, you'll forget about it soon enough.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. But we really appreciate that conversation. You guys hit the nail on the head. Whether you're single, married, divorced, widowed, it's important for all of our clients to be a part of the conversation. It's important for all of you to be a part of your financial conversation. That's what makes it work. It's truly family planning and making sure everybody's on the same page. So whether it's questions that you have in regards to your finances or just questions in general, we are more than happy to help answer those, whether you're a client of ours or not. That part doesn't matter. I know Danielle and Alice also more than happy to help out. So please use us as a resource. They both talked about using your resources and not being afraid to use your resources. There's lots of them here. And if it's not one of us, we have access to people like Alice and Danielle that do amazing work. So thank you guys. We appreciate it. We hope we can do this again in person in the fall. But we'll look forward to seeing you guys when we can see you again. So thank you and have a great day.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Bye, guys.